Okay, so let's get right into it. There's this really strange pattern that keeps popping up around one of the biggest stars on the internet. It's this series of public slights and moments of disrespect that, when you look at them all together, just don't add up. And it all kind of kicks off with this one single, totally bizarre comment made on a massive live stream. I mean, just imagine hearing that. You're on a huge charity stream with some of the biggest names online, and out of nowhere, someone just declares that you're the poorest person in the call, that you have the least liquidity, which is just a fancy way of saying you've got the least cash. This one quote really starts a chain reaction that's just, well, it's hard to ignore.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? How does the #1 most subscribed streamer on Twitch, the biggest streaming platform in the world, keep ending up on the receiving end of this kind of open disrespect? Is it just a clash of personalities, or is there something bigger going on here? Let's unpack it.
To really get what's happening, you have to understand what we're calling the Jynxzi paradox. It's this huge disconnect between his incredible numbers-don't-lie success and the way he's treated by his peers and even by big companies. It's almost like his achievements exist in a totally separate reality from how he's perceived.
And look, the numbers here are just wild. We're not talking about some up-and-comer. For almost a full year, this guy was #1 on all of Twitch. He's dropped 100 grand on a single charity stream. He's literally brought entire video games back from the dead. And he puts in the work to organize huge events for other creators. So the point is, this isn't some guy on the outside looking in. By every single metric, he's at the absolute top of the game.
All right, so let's rewind and go back to that charity stream, because that's where that first really jarring quote came from. And it's the perfect example of how Jynxzi can just be publicly dismissed even when he's part of a massive, high-profile event. And this is where it gets just absurd. So Logan Paul joins this MrBeast charity call and completely unprompted makes this claim you see on the left. But the reality, the actual truth, Jynxzi had already, quietly, donated $100,000 before Logan Paul even got on the call. So the comment wasn't just disrespectful, it was just flat out wrong.
Oh man, you could feel the cringe through the screen. I mean, the other creators on that call were visibly uncomfortable. Especially XQC, his face just said it all. It was so clear that everyone else in that call knew that comment was a completely baseless, unnecessary, and disrespectful cheap shot.
But see, the pattern grows. It goes from a single, dismissive comment to just being systemically ignored. And this next incident is a perfect example of that. It happens during a collaboration that Jynxzi himself organized, where his role as the organizer was basically treated like it didn't even matter.
So here he is, just trying to get a Clash Royale tournament with Kai Cenat's group off the ground. He's giving super clear, simple instructions, doing the project manager thing to get the event he put together actually started.
And then, right in the middle of his sentence, he just gets completely talked over. His instructions become background noise while another creator starts trying to play matchmaker for someone in the chat. It's a complete derailment, totally prioritizing chaotic, random content over the actual event Jynxzi is trying to run.
And then comes the final blow. Kai, the main guy he's collaborating with, just gets up, switches his camera over to his real-life setup, and walks away from the stream. No explanation, no be right back, nothing. He just leaves Jynxzi sitting there, live, in front of thousands of people, trying to hold a completely collapsed event together.
Okay, so this one felt different. This is where it kind of shifts from what you could maybe chalk up to carelessness to something that felt way more calculated and personal. This wasn't just being ignored. This felt like being actively targeted, probably just for the sake of creating some drama.
So let's just walk through what happened here. Jynxzi loses a $10,000 bet. The winner, Clix, immediately posts a photoshopped, kind of provocative picture of Jynxzi's girlfriend. So Jynxzi confronts him live, and he calls it exactly what it is, weird and an attempt to clip farm. Just a stunt to create a viral, out-of-context moment. He then says, hey, I'll pay you, but you need to delete that post and apologize first. Pretty reasonable.
And this was the response he got. That's not an apology, right? It totally frames Jynxzi's valid anger as the real problem. The subtext here is, it was just a joke, man. If you can't take it, you're the one being too sensitive. It's a classic way to deflect and avoid taking any real responsibility for crossing a line.
So up to this point, we've seen disrespect from other creators, guys who are in the trenches with him. But the pattern doesn't stop there. It actually extends into the corporate world, where Jynxzi's huge influence was basically treated like it was invisible. And this is where that whole paradox thing becomes just glaringly obvious.
Just look at this number, 500%. That is the insane growth in the player base for the game Clash Royale. And that explosion in popularity, it lines up perfectly with when Jynxzi started streaming it, bringing this massive new audience to a game that, frankly, a lot of people had already written off. So you'd think the company behind the game, Supercell, would be pretty happy, right? Well, when their CEO put out a blog post celebrating this historic year, he thanked everyone. He thanked the developers, new game content, an ad campaign, and the community in this really broad, vague way. The one name that was glaringly absent from that list? Jynxzi, the guy who was arguably the single biggest reason for that 500% jump.
And this brings us to the last piece of the puzzle, where just a basic lack of professional respect becomes this recurring theme in these big collaborations he's a part of. It kind of shows that the corporate snub wasn't a one-off thing, but part of this wider pattern of him just being treated unprofessionally. You don't even have to take my word for it. During another tournament he put together, things started falling apart again because of drama that had nothing to do with him. And another streamer, Phonum, just comes right out and says what everyone's thinking. He points out that the disrespect is insane, that he saw Jynxzi working on this thing for a week, only for it to fall apart because of pure chaos.
And honestly, this quote just sums it all up perfectly. Jynxzi flew all the way across the country for a big collab at the FaZe house, only for the whole thing to completely fall through because of bad planning. Another creator just laid it out there, blunt as can be. Jynxzi flew from Florida to California for a whole day of content and literally went home with nothing.
So when you put it all together, the public put-downs, the calculated personal attacks, the corporate snubs, and the constant unprofessional chaos, you just have to ask, what is really going on here? Is Jynxzi being targeted because his raw, unfiltered, sometimes chaotic style just doesn't mesh with the polished, clout-chasing world he's a part of? Is this just the price you pay for being authentic in an economy that runs on controversy and viral clips? That's the real question this whole pattern leaves us with.